Uh, welcome. Welcome to day 35. Day 34. Very successful, actually. We wrote about 11 pages, if I'm not mistaken. That's pretty damn good. For the longest time, I was really struggling to string those damn fucking papers together and actually write long. I didn't even write that long. I think I wrote for like 3 hours or something, officially. It's been a while since we wrote that many damn pages. It's been quite a while. I don't remember the last time I said I wrote that much, but we're chugging along, man. I really think we are beginning to approach the last 3/4 of the book. That part where we're getting closer to what I would consider this climax moment that's going to go up, 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 and then taper off. It's getting to be that way. I don't know, it just seems to be. I still question the things that I'm doing inside of the story. I still question, like, is this engaging enough? Did this feel like enough of a story? I don't know. I always feel like, because I think just about every character is like hanging out. Do you know what I mean? There's not many characters that are actually going off and doing a bunch of crazy things, except for Nakem. So, Eris is staying put somewhere, Jal and Vasha is staying put somewhere, Cypress is staying put somewhere. It's weird. So, we'll see. We'll see how it... We could edit things, we can move stuff around, we can make it a little bit more engaging for the fucking ADHD motherfuckers out there that apparently can't just think for a while. There's just oh god, I feel all the work ahead. I really do. So much of it, man. So much work to be done that I just think like about it and I'm just like, this is gonna be a nightmare. So this process in which I'm writing book 2 has a lot of determining factors that definitely make it different than book 1. But the main thing that I want to talk about is the time that it took to write them. Book 1 was started in 2013, and it wasn't finished until 2022, I think, a couple years ago. 2022 or 2023, I'm sorry, I don't remember. That's how long that motherfucker took. That's like almost 10 years of writing. But it's me. That means in a month I might have wrote 2 hours. You know what I mean? Like that's just how it is. I didn't always fucking write all that. Like I wasn't just sitting down daily working it out. It was probably only like maybe 20 hours to 40 hours of actual work. A work week, basically. Not really much. Book 2, I don't know, I'm sorry it's not finished, but let's just say we're about 3/4 the way through it, and it is taken me 35 days. Not consistently, but 35 writing days, and between 1 to 4 hours of writing in those days. So my thing is, like, what did time add to this? For me, in book 1, all that span, that 10 fucking years, added a whole hell of a lot of experience to be put in behind those words. It added a hell of a lot of lore that was built around it. Because I thought the book lore was finished. I made the world with my friends, you know, and it was like a thing, and I'm like, this feels good enough to start writing. You know, I feel like we got enough what's going on. But throughout all those years, and there would be months where I wouldn't write because I would say, I don't understand this. This doesn't make sense to me. And me and the guys would try to discuss what's going on.
Eris is coming back from his studying, from his
Whatever he
going
did,
through
yeah.
the libraries of Lyria to try and figure out what in the fuck's
The
going
ancient
on.
library, yep.
While Alistair is coming back from his violence and skullduggery, his setting up of things to collapse in the name of Quran. And at some point, Alistair just stops, and he's just looking in a mirror. He's not all there, and he is staring in the mirror, and all he sees is himself, not looking quite right, screaming back at him, but he is just kind of stuck in place. trying to just figure this reality out. He just wants to know why it won't stop. And Alistair, or my bad, Eris, who is likely residing in the same area, will walk by, and he'll see Alistair staring into the mirror. But whereas everybody else just kind of sees a dude who looks vaguely like you, staring into a mirror, just kind of going, just having a moment, Eris will kind of see that the mirror isn't doing the same thing back.
Yeah.
He'll pick up that Alistair is really not. He's not just kind of a unhinged southerner. Something is really, really not right with him at that very second.
Bathy is definitely just kind of sitting there watching this all happen, like contemptly, like, nah, I did my thing. The unified Tantorum, we did that, but now what, Bathy? Like, how is he being affected by all this shit?
So I would think that maybe it's got to be along the lines of like, have I been doing this too long? Have I run myself ragged? Am I going crazy? Is this what it means to be going crazy?
Right. It's very much a Castro moment where he's like, might be time to fucking pass it on.
Can I retire? Maybe I should retire from this lifestyle. The idea of having downtime, being able to sit down and ponder, right? Getting to that point. Being able to recant all the things that have been happening in the past decades. And I'm wondering, is this playing into my psyche? Right? Is this breaking down this realm of sanity that we all have?
Am I the right person to be making these decisions anymore?
Yeah. Is
So
it?
he was chosen by Gaia.
But there's that debate though, like
That human doubt.
yeah, that so that plays into fear, right?
And that's the whisper.
It's so making this all full circle, right? You always second guess. It doesn't matter. We always do it with anything, you know. And that's part of the fear factor.
We would sit down and work on it and stuff, and you think, okay, we problem solve some stuff. We can move forward in the story. And then it would just be, I don't know, it was just like that was too big story stuff, because we'd be talking about trade wars and Tantorum and the South and all that, and I'm like, none of these things have anything to do with my story. So that's like Eris's story. He's just like this isolated person, and I didn't necessarily choose that on purpose. Where I was like, okay, I want him to be this, I want him to be that. It was just, that's who I am as a person. Like, there's a world going on out there, and everyone gives a fuck about all their made up things. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't like any of those made up things. And I'm in my world, I'm like, I care about these made up things. That's all it is. It's just a smaller version. Well, that's the only way I knew how to write Eris. I didn't start Eris off like, yes, he is 35 years old, he served in the military, he fucking is taking part in the grand revolution that is leading his country into democracy and all this, you know. I didn't do that. I chose to have this character grow up in, first of all, yes, one of the biggest cities in the entire world. The biggest city, called the Vol. Massive metropolis, Constantinople-like, or Rome, or name any other giant metropolis. Athens. And it's like center of the world trade. He grew up in it, but like, and there was a society that was established that controlled, you know, the people, but like when you talk to him, the control was so separate from him, but so good that he has no clue. It's like when other characters bring up the gods or this and that, like he's like, I kind of know what you're talking about, but not really. Like, didn't you go to church? Like, didn't they force you guys to do this? This is the 1600s. And he's like, I guess, I don't know. I was confused what was going on there. Because he mirrors me. It's like someone that feels so, like, out of it. Like, it feels like there's a game in the world. And everyone jumps in and they think it matters and they think it's important and they're playing and they're having fun and they love arguing with each other. They love the idea of democracy versus communism. They love all these made-up little concepts, and we should argue about race and sex. Like, they love it. They're having so much fun in there. And it just feels like me and Eris are just like, I forgot to go into that. And you're just watching it happen. And because you're looking at it objectively, you're like, well, I don't even want to take part in that because it seems like it's misery. But then the whisper creeps and taps on the shoulder like, yeah, but you're miserable here too. And you're like, oh yeah, I guess I am. But at least it's my own misery and it has nothing to do with other people, so that's cool. So there's like a nihilistic approach to the book. Because when I think about it, I'm like, would I want to live in this world? This fake world called Yondu? I'm like, not really. It sounds worse than our real world. It doesn't sound like a great place to be. At all. It sounds like hell. But then again, I've only ever focused on the hell. I never really sat down, and since the beginning, since way back in 2012, that was like the last time I really was like, this will be great, this is beautiful, it's wonderful. But in a very big sense, what it does, and this is why that Celtic stuff really hit me, because when I first entered this made-up world that I thought I was creating in my mind, it was a beautiful, wonderful place. But the longer I stayed in it, the longer I was doing it, the more sinister it got. And that's what this book became. And then I heard the other worlds from Celtic mythology, whether you believe it or not, whether it's like Wicca or pagan or even ancient, like, you know, whatever you fucking think. They describe the other world as such. Once beautiful, it's great, it's nice, it's colorful, it's vivid, it's like being in a dream, it's amazing. But the more you stay there, the more it ages you, and the more it's more sinister than it first appeared. I heard that, I'm like, well, that's the fucking book. That's literally what this experience felt like physically to me as I've been jumping into it. And that's why I have my days, you'll see in these writing sessions where I'm like, I don't want to do this. I'm not feeling it, or I'm depressed. Because like my wife will know if I worked on a really fucked up chapter or something that was really difficult. Because it takes me, it kind of hurts, and I'm just depressed by it. You know, like when I didn't go into it in detail, and I'm going to later, but there was a scene in book 2 where I think a woman was violated, one of the main characters, and it kind of happened as they were being taken on the streets, like this public streets, and people were throwing shit at them and booing them, and, you know, being assholes. And they were being led because they were looked at as these outsiders that might have brought evil. And I think she might have been violated on the way, but my viewpoint was through the male character as we were going, and he looked back and tried to help her. Then he got the shit beat out of him. Then everyone told him to stop, and they wanted the prisoners to speak to the king. Right? I don't even know why that happened, but it fucking happened, and I still think about it. And I'm like, fuck, that would be insane if you were part of that and you felt so helpless that they would do this to this woman. And it hurts, right? Because it's a made-up woman. She doesn't exist. But it's happened. And so it kind of fucks me up a little bit. And I know I'm going to have to go back there, and I'm going to have to really be a little bit more descriptive, not like about the incident, but just I'm going to have to describe the environment, because I did, you know, non-stream of consciousness. So I'm going to have to like say what it felt like a little bit more detailed, and then what he saw when he looked, and, you know, all that shit. I know it's going to be a little dark. The more I work around in this world, this environment, the darker it appears, and the worse it is. I did so very little throughout my entire experience of working in this made-up world that I thought, yeah, this is a great place. You know, I love it. I would love to escape here. It just feels like fucking hell. It really does, and I wonder if it is in some sense. Not like for us or me, I just mean like in the character. Like, I wonder if where they exist is actually hell. I don't know. I don't know why that it became that way, but it became that way. And so exploring these elements inside of the story and going into it over the years, I definitely have felt the effect of it. And it's been so many years of exploration. And let's go back to time, because we went way off on that one. But I think in creating the worlds in book 1, it took longer just merely because it needed to be finished around. And I gave you the example with our with one of our thinking sessions that happened. I don't know when that happened. That was years ago. We would try to make things happen, but I would still be confused, and then I would go back and I would have a hard time with my story, right? So it was a longer process. It was a giant learning curve. But now that we're in book 2, I'm doing it a lot faster, mostly because I have finished lore elements that I can rely on, or at least as finished as they're going to be for now. So I can kind of like look at that, and it doesn't pause me so much. But I definitely still have a lot of questions that are unanswered, and exact motivations of cultures and people and stuff. It's quite difficult. So in the process of a slower writing style, it allows it to grow naturally, because you come across things in a natural way. I mean, let's be real. You could sit down and force all the plot holes and sit and fucking make it all happen with writing all these damn things and giving yourself headaches just staring at the page and make this all work. You can do it that way. I'm doing it the relaxed, easy, like, it comes to me when it comes to me. You know, if I come to a plot hole, like, okay, I might not solve this plot hole for 2 years. Who gives a shit? Time's irrelevant. And that's the biggest component of what I'm working at here, and how time seems to be irrelevant. Because when I go in the book, I just know, I'm like, if I rush this, it's just going to be like another stupid modern piece of art where it was force-fed out to people for profit, and no one really gave a fuck, and it was half-assed and all that. Like, I don't want to take part in that. I don't want that to be what I'm doing. I want what I'm doing to be the most honest and sincere, I guess, version of this story that I could possibly make. I don't know if it will ever feel that way, if anyone will ever see all the effort and all the hard work, and partially why these videos are out, so you can kind of get a little bit behind the scenes, you know. Because one day I will release the book, and then these videos will be found. I want them to kind of see what it took to make it. You know, it wasn't an easy fucking process. This was not something that, like, I don't know. I just wanted to have an open door policy and just say, like, come through and just see what it is, and then that now you know where it came from, so you don't make stories up. The book for me, this world, it's a very jarring place. And I don't necessarily know how to feel about it sometimes. I'm not sure why I can't make it happier. Make it more enjoyable to be in. Not just for the characters, but for me as well. Like, just a pleasure to be here kind of mentality. I don't really know why I can't do that. Because it's not necessarily something I set out to do. Like, in here, I'm like, I need to make sure it's dark. I need to make sure it's evil and wicked. It's not necessarily that. It's just, for me, the kindness, the good within this world are in small moments of character motivation. Not necessarily something that I'll ever really write in detail, like, look at that, that's who a good guy is. It's just small moments of, like, what do they worry about? When Nacob's away from Eris, and he doesn't necessarily want to play a part in this world, he doesn't really want to be a part of the prophecy. If anything, his life was stolen away because of it, and he's being strung along in a sense of, like this is a thing that was meant to happen in the world, that is a giant prophecy that was foretold for thousands of years, and you're a part of it now. And you're just like, well, I am? What the fuck does this have to do with me? And you don't want it to. You want to just go off in your world, and you want to live your life. You want to have your fucking stuff. You don't want to get caught up in other people's junk. You're sick of it. Like, you ran away from it for a reason. You grew up in this ultra super religious house, and they were always talking about this doomsday shit, and you're done with it. And you ran away, and look at it, came and found you again. And now it's wrapped up in a prophecy that your family foretold for a long time, and you're like, I don't even want to believe this, but that's all I've ever been told to. And it's like fucked up. But you keep finding yourself helping the kid in the prophecy, and you question why. Every time you're like, why the fuck am I helping him? Why did he have to come into my life? Why am I doing this? I didn't want any of this. I wanted to like escape and just be okay instead of fucking have to play these dumbass games all the time. And you look at the character that feels that way and you think like, oh geez, you know, conflicted. But it's the small moments of like how he shows his care for Eris, not as the prophecy holder, but as a human being going through a hard time, and you're just like, you know, I got to do something because he's going through a fucking hard time, and you just get, it's like that. That's what the good in the world is for me. There's another character who's like hell bent on bringing his son back. He thinks that because of an incident happened a long time ago where his son was what seemed to be, like we could say in our modern equivalent, electrocuted. And he kind of is in this comatose state. And he wants his son to be back. And these people took him and said, we can keep him alive. And we might know how to save him, but you have to do this thing for us. And they want you to do something really fucked up. You want to have your son back? We can heal him. Oh God, do it. As long as you promise you'd help us kidnap this guy. Kidnap a guy? I guess it's kind of crazy. Who are we kidnapping? A fucking king of a country. One that you knew personally because you were involved in the political family. Like they took you in. You were some outsider. They took you in. They cared about you. And then there's a whole backstory to it. You'll have to read it to find out. And you watch him try to convince himself, because eventually that doesn't work out, and he has to take Eris. And he has to take this kid knowingly to his death. Because of all the stuff he surmised throughout the years, he's like, I think they're going to do something bad to him. But he's like telling himself, I don't care, I want my son back. I'll do whatever it takes. And all along the way are these little clues that his son might be dead. They might be lying to him and tricking him. But he just doesn't want to believe it. He's like, no, I can't believe that that's happening. There's no way. No, my son is alive. And then eventually, you start to see him almost in a small way, very small, just kind of care a little bit about Eris. Just a little tiny bit. It's overshadowed heavily by how much he's being abusive to Eris, but he kind of gives a little bit of a shit sometimes. Really depends. It's like a small little fucking moment around the campfire where he looks at the kid who's kind of struggling. He's like, you know, poor kid. That's it. Nothing bigger than that. Those are the small good moments, you know. I love the doubt that every character has. Like when I write the two overly religious zealots that come from the same kind of dogmatic, interconnected clan-based religion that Nahum guy came from, though they stayed in it. They grew up alongside him, but they stayed in it, and they believe everything they were told, and they'll do whatever it takes to fulfill this prophecy. It's like being a part of this cult, and the guy escaped from the cult because he wanted to be a part of it, and these people stayed involved in it, and their name are Joel and Vasha, old friends of Nahum's when he was a little kid. Felt betrayed when he left them. Thought that he was some special, he could have had all this great power because they're mages and shit. But he decided to leave. And they stayed in part of it. And they're like students, man. They give a shit. And they'll do whatever it takes to learn these magical powers. And they're like proteges, in a sense. Like the epitome of what it is to be in this cult. I call it Seiko Opaque. Then when they discover Eris, it's like, of course, you're the prophecy, we're going to take you back. We have a whole ass thing we're going to do. We'll take you back to the compound, and we will instruct you in what you're going to do. And they believe it. But I'm creeping in slowly. Creeping it in. Doubt. My favorite thing, man. Just doubt. It's just like, I don't know. Like maybe that jaw guy who sits down and thinks like, I don't know what's happening anymore. Like everything kind of fell apart when we tried bringing Eris in. And now we're all thrown askew in the world. I don't necessarily know how to feel about this. This doesn't seem like it's part of it. Everything seems to be falling away. All my rigid walls that were safety and like, don't worry, the prophecy will happen. He will come. He will free us all. and you're actually walking around with Jesus in a sense. But it doesn't feel like walking around with Jesus. It feels more like walking around with Moses in the desert. It's like, okay, maybe he's chosen by God, but like, man, it's been like 25 years. How many more? You know, it's like, doubt. I don't know what to think about all this shit. This is confusing. Is this the right thing? Are we meant to bring balance to the Force? You know, that kind of mentality. Every character will go through that. You know, and I have many other characters, like there's a woman named Anna, who's a part of this. Like, they all, Nahum and Eris came into her tavern, and those other two, Jala and Vasha, the acolytes that came in as well, and somehow she got hooked up into this shit. And she's being strung along, but she doesn't like these Murphos people that Nahum, Jala, and Vasha are. They're like exile people. She doesn't like them. She doesn't trust him because you find out that maybe her husband was killed by people like that, and she takes it out on them. There's this racist element that I'm really exploring of like, how do you put up with people you don't like? How do the walls get broken down? It's usually by love, but you know, we'll gloss over that. And you get to see her just struggling, being strung along on this prophecy thing too, and not wanting a damn part of it. But she gives a fuck about that 17-year-old kid who looks like he's fucking terrified. He reminds her of something. Probably a part of herself. And like for me, again, that's the small moments of the goodness in the world. It's just, they're not very big. It's just like, man, I see myself in that kid. I'll see what I can do. That's no more than that. But the rest of the world's fucking horrible. There's murder, there's rape, there's fucking this junk is horrible. People are greedy, there's evil, there's wickedness, there's lies, there's deceit. There's giant entities manipulating the consciousness of mankind for their own fucked up reasons. And you don't see any good except for those little moments around the campfire where you look at the person across from you and think like, man, I hope they're doing okay with all this. Like, that's it, you know? I just find that what it's doing is you're in a room full of darkness and evil and wickedness, but there's that little tiny light that shines so bright. You only need a little bit of good in a world of evil. And in my imagination, the way this world works, it's just that. It's that very thing. It's the goodness is in the doubt. The doubt is... the reason it's called doubt is because you're participating in darkness, but you might not want to, so you doubt it. And you're allowing goodness to come in, you know. People think that good and evil is this easy thing to understand. Like, good is Jesus Christ and the Holy Ghost. Evil is the devil. And I'm like, actually, it's far more complex than that. The good and evil is within you. It's within the small things, the big things that you do, and how you look at the world. And what you think is good and evil in the world. Whenever you're met with something that makes you feel doubt, you should probably take a fucking mental picture of what's happening right there. Because you might be choosing between good and evil, and you don't even fucking realize it. It doesn't even feel that way. That's the motherfucking problem that we have as a society. At least in my view. Now, the way the books kind of play out is a grand moral story. Like anything. This was not what I wanted it to be. But as I become a writer every day, as I've more and more kind of dipped my toe into like, I guess I'm going to write a story. I guess I'm going to create fucking writings and stuff. The more I had to learn that you can't just say to say. You have to say what you know. And you have to, whatever you know, you have to show the people how you got to that point, how you look at it. But at the same time, you have a duty to study how to be a better human being within your own life. So you put that in your work. So you don't write something that spews just pure hatred. You have to write something that like says, yeah, you know, like maybe there's a dark thing that I think about from time to time, or maybe I have a bad thought about certain things, but I'm aware of it and I'm trying to be a better person. And here's how I'm doing it. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm gonna like win. I might fail heavily. You know, there's many moving elements to it. But to me, that's what it is to work in this world. And I hope I kind of made it a little clearer why it's hard to write sometimes. You know? It's very difficult to want to do this all the time when this is what's happening. When you're aware of the consequences, or when you're aware of this evil all around you, that in theory you made, but in reality you captured because of the real world. You look at a certain group of like people in history and you think like, wow, they did some fucked up shit. I'm going to take that, put it in here. Wow, look at that. I'm going to put that in here too. Like, holy fuck, religion. Look at the deaths that happened because of religion. Let's put that in here as well. And it's just a reflection, you know, but it's going through my filter. So of course, like when it's coming through me, I'm discerning like what I thought was right and wrong, and I'm putting it in there. So it's as the writer, you're the filter to what you see out in the world. And all the consciousness of man happens, and then when it hits you and it filters through whatever fucking sense of reality that you've created in that moment and up to that point, and your imagination as well, it makes it like a factory and it pushes it out with those two things congealed together and placed inside this book. From that point, you basically have to just kind of toss up the idea of like, okay, then what am I trying to say? With all of that being said, what is the point I'm trying to make in this book here? And then obviously for me, it's just the world's full of darkness. The world's a horrible place. And it feels like if you want to participate in the world, you're participating with Satan, is what it feels like. So if you go off alone in yourself, maybe you could be okay. But then that's where the darkness lies too, and that's where depression lies. So it's a case of a, rock in a hard place. You're just kind of like, well, what the fuck do I do? Do I conform to reality and be like everyone else? Or do I slowly wither away by myself underneath this rock? And that's Eris's decision. That's my decision in my life. Like, what the fuck do I do? I don't know. Which one is right? Or is there another option that I'll slowly learn about through this series of, wait a minute, it's not all doom and gloom. And obviously I'm not going to go into that very much, because I'll ruin the books. But that's the whole point of like my journey through these stories. And what I've discovered along the way, and it's not been easy. And I wasn't altruistic, and I wasn't like, from the beginning I knew this would happen. I'm like, no. This is just shit I've discovered along the way in this creation process. So I just think it's rather interesting to kind of keep letting people in and see this stuff so they can grasp it better. Because eventually, when I feel the time is right, it depends on who you are. Certain people, if they want to read this book right now, book 1, you can read it. You just got to message me. I'll let you read it. I don't care. There are certain elements I don't feel like are 100% done, but if you really want to read it, I don't care. You can totally read it. You just got to give me your email or something. I'll definitely send it out. I have no problem doing that. But eventually, when all 3 books are done, I'll put it out to the world and let people figure it out for themselves. But we'll see at that point, whenever the fuck that happens. At this rate, maybe 5 years. We'll see.